Welcome to Limitless Minds. I'm your host, Tanish Shenoy, a teen entrepreneur, TEDx speaker, and your guide to unlocking unstoppable potential. Here, we talk to game changers, risk takers, and visionaries. If you want to learn how to turn challenges into stepping stones, you have come to the right place. Because if you don't start now, someone else will. Let's break barriers and become limitless. Hi everyone, I am super excited today as I got a very special guest here. He's a author, professor at University of California, Berkeley, Haas School of Business, and an entrepreneur. He is Professor Aaron McDaniel. Welcome, Professor. I'm super excited to have you. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me.
Awesome. I know we've talked before and we met at Cafe Think. How have things been so far?
In the life of an entrepreneur, I like to keep busy, and so I've definitely been keeping busy with some ventures I've been working on.
Nice. Speaking of ventures, could you share a little bit about some of the accomplishments you've had over the years and how they went?
Sure. So I started my career in corporate at a big company, which was AT&T, 300,000 employees almost. And I learned a lot in the process and did very well, worked in a lot of different parts of the business, but I kind of knew in my heart that I was an entrepreneur. And so almost the entire time I was there, for almost an entire decade, I was always doing side businesses. So I almost looked at my job as a venture capitalist, if you will. So usually when you get venture capital money or investor money, you are taking their money and they are giving you, you were taking their money and you were giving up equity in your business. One way you can think about it is your job is like your venture capitalist as well. And what happens is instead of giving them part of your company, you're giving them some of your time in exchange for the money they're giving you, which you can use on your business. And so when it comes to my businesses, I've done a very weird mix from custom wedding invitations to portable beer pong tables and cornhole tables, and then a early taxi app that came out around the same time Uber did. Also a real estate crowdfunding platform that opened it up for everyone to invest in real estate. I was actually on ABC Shark Tank for that. Then I started a mobile investing platform, and then since then recently had written a book about international business expansion, and now I'm building a platform to help companies better manage choosing what markets, what countries to expand into, and how to grow their business across the world.
Wow, that's a lot of amazing accomplishments and definitely very inspiring. I know a lot of those startups who didn't getting featured on Shark Tank, it's a big deal. I'm wondering, how did you get on Shark Tank and what were some of the challenges that you faced when launching your own startups?
So there are a lot of challenges. The definition that I give of entrepreneurship to my students is moments of euphoria, moments of happiness amidst constantly being punched in the gut. Meaning something bad will happen, and then another bad thing will happen, and then sometimes a good thing will happen, but then another bad thing will happen. And you really need to be resilient. You really have to realize that to be successful, you're going to have to overcome people telling you no, customers telling you no. Another definition that I give of entrepreneurship is hearing no a lot and persevering until you hear yes.
Wow, that's so true. And I know a lot of startups, they started like that too, like Starbucks too. Definitely good insights. And speaking of students, what are some of the other lessons you teach in your entrepreneurship class besides just being moments of happiness? We're getting punched in the gut. Good analogy about that too.
So if I had to characterize entrepreneurial success in one word, There's lots of words you could choose, like perseverance and resilience. But the number one most important word, most important thing, if you take from our conversation here, is that entrepreneurial success in one word is customers. Because without customers, you do not have a business. You will eventually go out of business. You won't have any more money. You will end up moving on to something else. But if you have customers, that will make you successful. And the reason why I bring that up is because your customers and what they want are your North Star. And what I've often found with entrepreneurs who are at the beginning of their entrepreneurial journey is that they focus on their idea. I have this great idea. I am going to build it. And that's nice, but that often, in almost every case, does not end up being the company that your customer actually wants. So there's lots of great lessons from Steve Jobs from Apple. But one thing that he said that I think is a terrible lesson is when he said, customers don't know what they want until you tell them what they want. Now, the reason why that works for Apple is because Apple had billions of dollars to advertise to make you want what they were selling. You as an entrepreneur, unless you, I don't know, inherited something or won the lottery, you don't have that much money to do that. So you need to understand your customer and what they want and build what they are looking for as opposed to just what you want. So to put it another way, instead of falling in love with your idea and what you want to build, fall in love with a problem that you identify, with something you want to fix, with something you see wrong, a benefit that should be given to customers that isn't being given. And if you fall in love with that and you interact with customers, then you're going to do whatever it takes to make sure to give that benefit to the customers, to make sure to solve that pain for the customers. And often it won't be doing it exactly the same way you originally thought you would do it.
Yeah, that's so true. A lot of times people even say that you need to see what customers want, or you're like, they don't know what they want. But you need to make sure first that it's actually what people want for the most part. And then based off that, you got to pivot your idea or start the idea. So
And
I know.
how do you do that? What is the best way to do that?
What is the best way to do that? Market research and asking a few potential people who you think might be your potential customers. And then based off that, being like, all right, I noted this down. I noted that, okay, for example, my customers value their website experience to be more clean, smooth. And based off of that, implement that onto the website, for example. This is just one of them, but there could be many other examples I could pull up.
Yes. So what you said is exactly right. Go talk to your customers and go understand and when we say when I say talk to your customers, I don't mean go pitch them your idea. What I mean is talk to them about that problem you're solving or that thing that you think is wrong that can be fixed. Okay.
Yeah.
Then in doing that, having an open conversation, then you're going to learn things and how they view things and how they see the problem. And you think about the words they use. Those type of words will help you have the right way to describe your solution to solve that problem for them. Right. So those customer conversations are really important, but they're not always just the best thing to do. There's a second thing you need to do, which is observe behavior. So I've been in ventures where I go talk to customers and I say, oh yeah, here's what we're going to build. You want this? And then they say, yes. And then I go build it. And then I come back and then they say, oh no, I'm not going to pay for that. And then I go, well, wait a minute. You just told me you wanted this and I built it and now you don't. And it's because that was just their opinion. And often people want to be nice. They don't want to say no to you, right? Whereas if you can get observed behavior, like making customers take an action where they actually think they are buying something, then that helps them. Let me give an example. Let's say you want to start a hoodie company or a sweatshirt company. You don't need to go find someone on Alibaba, a factory in China, to make your designs or graphic. You don't have to go through and build all of this stuff. You literally could easily take a Shopify website, take a silhouette of a hoodie, and just superimpose the image you want on it, and put it out there. and send people to the website, post on Instagram or whatever, or TikTok about it, have people come to the website, and then they're taking the action to look at it and then put it in their shopping cart. And then at the very end, you could say, "Oh, I'm sorry, we ran out. I'll let you know as soon as it's available." But they're actually taking an action. They don't just by opinion want it. They actually thought they were buying it, put it in their cart until you said it was no longer available. And then you have this whole group of customers who want your product, have proven that they want it. So if 100 people do that, then you know that it's worth investing in buying 100 printed hoodies to go sell it back to them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes total sense. And that's so true. And nowadays with social media, it's a lot more easier some ways to market to people. So speaking of social media and now AI coming up, how do you feel about AI?
Yeah. So, I would put it this way. And I know for most of the audience here, you guys weren't born when this happened before, but if you go back to the 1990s, before there was the internet, the internet came out and everything was about this.com and that.com and the internet, right? But now the internet is sort of ubiquitous. It's sort of everywhere. Everybody uses the internet to sell their products or market their products in some fashion. And that's how AI is going to be later. Now it seems like the hot thing, but it's really about the problem you're solving and the customer you're servicing and how AI can help with that, as opposed to just like, oh, it has to be AI. Also, right now, a lot of people distrust AI, especially with the LLMs and how they hallucinate. And so if you just sort of, take whatever, ChatGPT and put your own skin on top of it and expect, oh yeah, I'm going to make a lot of money for that. If you really want to do something interesting in AI, figure out a niche, figure out a small problem that needs to be solved, a very specific thing that you can train an AI to help with, and then go to that customer to solve it, instead of just like, oh, we're going to, essentially just add an AI agent and that's going to, make everything the best. It's really about how you customize it to make it valuable in solving a problem for a customer.
Yeah, that's so true. Need to make sure you bring value to the table for whoever you're selling it to. That's one important thing. Yeah, one huge thing that many entrepreneurs overlook. And I know a lot of teenagers nowadays want to launch their own startups, but you feel like, oh, they're not sure or don't know where to start or feel scared that they're going to fail. So do you have any advice for the teenagers who want to launch their own startup?
Yes. If you are scared that you're going to fail, get over it. You are going to fail, right? Like failure is an indication that you are actually putting out effort. Okay. And so just realize in the life of an entrepreneur, you are going to fail all the time and you need to be okay with it. And so in one way, you can look at failure as this horrible, terrible thing. The other way, which successful entrepreneurs look at as, is that is a great lesson that you learned. You wouldn't have learned it. Often if you talk to someone who was always successful and never had any obstacles or otherwise, they're not a great person to talk to because they don't really understand how it will be for most people. They were just lucky, whatever. But those failures you have are really big lessons. And it's better to make those failures sooner now so that you are more educated and better understand things for later as you continue to build on your entrepreneurial journey.
So true. Yeah. Failure is a key to success. And many people, especially in today's society, have that stigma that failure is bad or it's not something that you should make sure you can avoid at all costs. And in entrepreneurship, that's totally not true. In fact, it's the opposite, where failure is a reason that you've learned something. If you take a look at a baby, even for example, or a little kid, in order to get up to how they're walking, they first had to fail a lot of times before they start to walk.
That's right.
Similarly, if we do it as an entrepreneur, if we fail a few times, saying, for example, launching a product and then the product launch date gets delayed due to some error, you can always be like, okay, well, I might have been a little bit of disappointment, but then get over it and then be like, okay, this is what we need to do, and then pivot or even see what you can do to make it better than what you were thinking.
Yeah, I mean, the simple thing is when that failure happens, just ask yourself, what lesson is there to learn from this?
Yeah. Could you share some examples of when you encountered failure and how did you navigate them?
Yeah. So other times I would go through the process of actually building the platform and product or whatever it might be. And I attempted to make everything perfect from the beginning instead of doing what is called a minimum viable product or MVP, and basically doing the like a simple version of it that's very manual to test it out. And then you learn and then you continue to build and build and build from there. I think another lesson that I've learned is one way to label it is working smarter, not harder. When I look back, and hindsight is 2020, but I often spent a lot of time just thinking I need to go do something for this venture to stay busy instead of taking a moment and really thinking what is the best, most important use of my time right now, and let me focus on what is most important instead of focusing on just filling up my time with doing things that I thought maybe I should be doing.
Definitely. That's so true. We need to focus on what are the most important tasks over doing a lot of things and just not making much progress. Yeah. Is there any way you can say how you've focused on the most important tasks and separated out some tasks that you can do for later?
Yeah, I mean, so there's a couple ways to do that. One is to see if there are other sources that essentially can do that task for you, whether it be something like AI or another person, or using Upwork or Fiverr or some other platform to invest a little bit of money and to do something so it can free up your time to do something more important. So, but ultimately, it's thinking about what questions you need to have answered about your venture, and then figuring out the most direct way to get an answer to that question. Here's what I mean. What price should I sell this at? You got to answer that question. Actually think, with interacting with customers and doing measured tests, what is the fastest way for you to figure out what the price should be? Or if it has to do with a feature of your product or the color of your sweatshirt or other, think about the simplest, easiest, fastest, most direct way to get an answer to that question.
I see. That's so true. Like getting direct answers too. Like I know a lot of times investors as well ask for like direct answers and all. And I know you've been on Shark Tank. So like, could you share a bit about some of the questions that you were asked while you were on Shark Tank, and how do you answer them? And
let me make one more point to the previous question. The other thing that's really important for you to do is recognize patterns. So the question I always get from my students is, well, how many people should I talk to help answer that question? And the answer is keep talking to people until you recognize a pattern. If you start hearing the same people saying the same things over and over, then it's likely true for a larger group of people. But to answer the question about Shark Tank, it was a really cool experience. Part of me thinks, okay, I was kind of naive. I thought it was going to be an entrepreneur talking to investors, but it was really an entrepreneur talking to actors, right? They said different things really just to get a response out of me, just to get me to say like, whatever, to frazzle me or something like that. And so because of that, I just ultimately, it wasn't, I guess the thing I want to leave as a thought is Shark Tank isn't exactly real. That's not how it is. You don't talk to an investor and they immediately give you money. It's about building a relationship. So it's about meeting someone and then essentially making progress with your venture and impressing them over time so that they're more encouraged to want to invest in you. Now, if you're talking about like a venture capitalist, when you pitch to a VC, they're going to give you 3 answers. Yes, no, or maybe. And maybe often sounds kind of like a yes, but it's not really a yes. Okay. And the reason, and what's going to happen is you very rarely are going to get the yes or no. You're mainly going to get the maybe or this seems kind of like a yes. And the reason why is because 9 out of 10 times with these VCs, their investment turns into nothing, right? It's only that like one time out of 10 that they get that big Facebook they invest in, or Airbnb, or one of those big companies. And so for them, they want to de-risk it as much as possible. So usually what they would say to you is, this is a great idea. Why don't you come back and talk to me after this happens, after you get your first customer, after you have 5,000 users, after you do this, because it de-risks it for them. Because what'll happen between when you talk to them now and later is either one, your business will fail, and then they'll say like, phew, I'm glad I didn't invest in you. Or you will succeed at that, and then that will be an important point that de-risks the investment for them. And then they often don't want to say no because they don't want to miss out on a really good idea. And so you kind of have to navigate through that, basically. But Shark Tank was an interesting experience, not real to real life. But, you know, I felt like I stayed true. If you guys watch my episode, you'll see I stayed true to who I am. I stayed professional. I got an offer from Mr. Wonderful that I turned down. But it ended up being a very good thing for my business, because literally it's worth millions and millions of dollars of advertising on a major TV network where they talk about your company.
Wow, that's a lot. And I know that Shark Tank effect must have had some really positive outcome for your business. I remember it was like
the company got acquired, and one of the big reasons why the acquirers were like, we are interested in the spotlight, you know, and the eyeballs and the, you know, registered users and whatever, all of that came from being in front of millions and millions of people on Shark Tank. So in the end, it did help.
Wow, that's a lot. It got acquired. Congrats.
Thanks.
Wow. Now, like, you did a whole circle of startup and entrepreneurship by starting a company, getting it up to the investors, getting it even on Shark Tank, which is a big deal, and then all the way to getting it acquired. So how do you want to tell anyone who wants to launch their startup to be getting it acquired? They're like saying, oh, I want it acquired for like $1 billion, but then they're starting out. So do you feel like the journey is more important, or like?
Yeah, so I'll say this. So one, that raising all this venture capital money and getting bought for $1 billion, that is only one type of entrepreneurship. I teach my students at Cal, there are lots of different types of entrepreneurs. You don't have to go raise all of that money. In my current venture, we're bootstrapping, what it's called. Like, we're funding this ourselves because there's a lot of pressure and things that come from bringing in those outside investors. And so that's only one way to go about doing things. The other thing is, going back to what I said before, if you build a great product that your customers love, that is what you should focus on. Don't necessarily focus on what someone's going to buy you for how much later. Just focus on building a business that helps customers and make sure they love you. And then ultimately, either you could get acquired, or you could just have a business that makes you tons and tons of money because you're helping solve a problem for your customer.
Good point. Definitely. People need to hear that more, especially those who think it's all glamorous and all that stuff. Well, thank you for joining today, and thank you for being a part of this podcast. I hope to see you once again soon. And yeah, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, and everybody listening, feel free to find me on LinkedIn, Aaron McDaniel, look me up, and we're happy to see how I can help you on each of your entrepreneurial journeys.
All right. Thank you so much.
Now that you've got all the insights, it's time to take action. What's one thing you're going to do differently after this episode? Reflect on it, and I'll see you next time on Limitless Minds.